From your world news headquarters on the World Wide Web, it's time for your daily dose of sanity. This is the Meria Heller Show. Meria Heller is a published author, founder of the Universal Wheel, a lifestyle and philosophy based on our interconnectedness to all living things, a Reiki master, and delivers the news with spiritual views. How many intuitive news decoders, animal rights activists, and vegetarian broadcasters are there? Just one, Meria. Meria has provided independent news for a smart audience for over 13 years now on the Meria Heller Show, available at Meria.net. MERIA.net. And now, here is your host, the mouth that roars, Meria Heller.
Good morning, world. Meria here, alive and kicking. Have one of my very favorite heroes on the planet back on the show today. And it's none other than Nathan Runkle, who is the founder of Mercy for Animals. If you're not familiar with Mercy for Animals, get over to mercyforanimals.org. I think you're going to really get quite the eye awakening there. Good morning, Nathan.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's always a pleasure having you back on the show. Nathan, for new listeners that are not familiar with you or how you came to form Mercy for Animal, can you give us a description?
Yeah, well, Mercy for Animals is a national nonprofit organization, and our mission is to prevent cruelty to farmed animals and promote compassionate food choices and policies. And Mercy for Animals has been around for about 15 years. We're celebrating our 15th anniversary this year. And the organization started in a small town in rural Ohio after an animal abuse case at our local high school. And essentially, the story is that there was an agricultural class at the high school, and the teacher of that class was also a pig farmer. And one day, he was planning to have a dissection project at the school. So he killed some piglets on his farm that morning and brought them to the school. Now, the problem is that one of the piglets that he had tried to kill that morning on his farm was still alive when he arrived to the class. So a student in the class who also did part-time work on the teacher's pig farm took this piglet by her hind legs and slammed her head first into the ground in an attempt to kill her in front of all of the other students. Now, this piglet was still alive. She was suffering horribly. A few of the other students who were just outraged and appalled by this act of unspeakable cruelty took this baby piglet, left the classroom, and brought this suffering animal to the attention of another teacher. She left the school, went to a local veterinarian where the piglet was euthanized because there was simply nothing that they could do to help this animal at this stage. Animal cruelty charges ended up being filed against the student and the teacher in this case, and the first day of the trial, all of these counts of animal cruelty were dismissed. And that's because in Ohio, like pretty much every other state in this country, if something is considered standard agricultural practice and it takes place on a factory farm to farmed animals, it's exempt from cruelty prosecution. So this case really illustrated to me 15 years ago that there needed to be an organization in this small farming town in Ohio that would give a voice to farmed animals, because I knew that farmed animals suffered pain and fear and distress, but also joy and happiness and love in the same way as dogs and cats and other companion animals, and that they deserve protection and respect in much the same way. And Mercy for Animals has grown from that incident to a national organization with hundreds of thousands of members nationwide, and we work to expose cruelty on factory farms and slaughterhouses through undercover investigations. We work to enforce the laws that we do have on the books and to push for stronger laws through legal advocacy. And we work to educate consumers about the plight of these animals and encourage them to move towards a compassionate vegan diet through proactive education campaigns and initiatives.
Well, I'm assuming that I would think when that happened at the school that a lot of those kids must have been traumatized.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that anyone who witnesses a baby animal being slammed headfirst into the ground would be traumatized from that. And the shocking reality is that this happens every day across the country on pig factory farms. It's so common and acceptable that the pork industry has a term for this, and it's called thumping. And they consider it to be an appropriate way of killing baby animals. Now, of course, the problem is that it can lead to prolonged suffering for these animals. Many of these piglets don't die outright. They get fractured skulls, and they can take minutes, sometimes hours, before they suffer and die.
That's disgusting. You know, I had a news story yesterday that over in Russia, to get ready for the Olympics, they're killing all the stray dogs. And one of the higher-ups there said, well, we're just treating them as what they are, just biological garbage.
Wow.
And that's disgusting. You know what I mean?
It's absolutely disgusting. And, you know, we see that every day with farmed animals. For example, in the egg industry, all of the males who are deemed worthless or deemed trash by the industry are literally thrown away into garbage cans. Some of them are thrown alive into huge grinding machines while they're still alive and conscious. Others are gassed, but they are treated as useless byproducts of this industry. Now, of course, we know that these animals deserve our respect just as much as any other animal. But to these industries that are driven by the bottom line, these animals are little more than production units and commodities. And we see that time and time again with the complete disregard that they pay to these animals.
Right. You know, when I saw Mercy for Animals poster on Facebook about the male chicks being killed, a lot of people got really angry, but not angry because they were being killed, angry saying that it wasn't true.
And that can be a natural response when people hear about the absolute horror, the standard horror that animals on factory farms face. The first reaction for some is just absolute disbelief. We want to think that in the 21st century in the United States of America that there would be laws and regulations and oversight that would protect these animals. But the reality is that there are very few laws on the books, and there are essentially no meaningful watchdogs looking out for farmed animals except for nonprofit organizations like Mercy for Animals who are doing these investigations. And I think that when we start to pull back the curtains and really look inside of factory farms and we see how male chicks are ground up alive, how we see how piglets are slammed headfirst in the ground, how we see how mother sows are kept locked in crates where they can't turn around, or egg-laying hens are locked in cages where they can't even spread their wings. All standard practices, I think as a civilized and moral and ethical society, we have to pause for a moment and ask ourselves if we're comfortable with these actions. And I think that any compassionate, thinking, ethical person would say, absolutely not. And if that is our response, then we have to start looking at solutions.
Right.
And our diet is really a leading culprit in this. Moving towards a vegan diet is the best thing that we can do to prevent cruelty to farmed animals. But we also need our laws to reflect our societal values on how these animals are treated. But these large corporations, the Monsantos of the world, the Smithfields, they have for far too long been given a free pass to influence legislation in ways that essentially exempt farm animals from any protection, and that's something that needs to stop.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm trying to remember. I think it was Tyson last month that had a huge recall. I think it was them where they went into the factory and found everything was covered with cockroaches. So, you know, you also have to think about human health. You know, what's the human health result from eating these types of, you know, animals that have been raised in such filthy and disgusting conditions?
Absolutely. And every time that we go into a factory farm or slaughterhouse, not only do we find appalling animal abuse, but we find conditions that would raise serious questions and concerns about public health and food safety. When you're confining literally millions of animals in a very small area, you can imagine the amount of disease that will run rampant inside of these operations. These animals are packed so tightly together. They're living in their own excrement, their own waste. Many of them are pumped full of antibiotics and hormones just to keep them alive under these conditions. This doesn't only have a negative impact and consequence for the animals, but for the consumer as well. And we find, for example, in places where animal abuse runs rampant at slaughterhouses, you have a high number of downed animals. These are, for example, cows that are too sick or injured to even walk on their own. And that's not only an animal welfare concern, but it's a human health concern as well, because downed animals are more likely to have bovine spongiform encephalopathy or mad cow disease. They're more likely to be wallowing in their own waste, so they have higher chances of salmonella and E. coli and Campylobacter and all sorts of pathogens and diseases that can get into the human food supply. So what's bad for animals is oftentimes bad for us and consumers as well.
Absolutely. I think most diseases in this country can be traced to people eating too many animal products. And now it's kind of interesting that they're warning people, don't eat processed meat. It's got so many carcinogens, you could end up with cancer. And yet, there's still that cognitive dissonance. I'm thinking about whenever I get a new film from Mercy for Animals, of course, I immediately put it up on my Facebook wall and social media. And the reaction is the same as people not wanting to know what goes on inside a slaughterhouse, because most of the time, Nathan, people will comment, I won't watch this film, I can't watch this film. And yet, there's still meat eaters.
Absolutely. And I think that really speaks volumes to this out-of-control, abusive factory farm and industrial slaughter system that we have in this country. Is if people are so frightened and so horrified that they won't even take a look at what's happening, I think that should be an immediate red flag that these industries are out of line, they're out of step, they're out of sync with our values. I think very few people would think twice about watching footage of corn being harvested or someone picking apples from trees. There's no risk of post-traumatic stress disorder from seeing vegetables being killed from the ground. But when we're seeing living, thinking, conscious animals being ripped from their families, being mutilated, having their throats slit while they're fully conscious, rightfully so, it disturbs people. And I think that what that should tell us is that these are inhumane and unethical behaviors that we shouldn't be supporting. It's not in line with most people's values of being fair and kind and good and humane to others, and in this case, others being animals that we eat. And we really do have the power to make those choices every time that we sit down to eat.
Absolutely. I always tell people, you vote with your fork, indeed. There's a commercial I see every now and then on Hulu for a TV show. I don't know what it's about, chefs or cooking or whatever out of the UK. And at one point, a waiter comes in and says, a woman is complaining you don't have enough vegan choices on the menu. And the cook responds with, well, tell her to take her uppity, self-righteous self somewhere else, or something to that effect. Why do you think being a vegan or vegetarian has such negative connotations to so many people that they even joke about it?
Well, I think in general there is really a shift in the awareness and understanding to go vegan in our society. And I think that people, especially young people, are much more open and receptive to veganism now, because with YouTube, with the internet, people are starting to see for themselves the horrors that animals are subjected to. They have more readily available information on the health benefits of a vegan diet. I think that is absolutely shifting on this issue, and I think that the numbers reflect that. We see meat consumption in the United States plummeting 12% since 2007. That's over 1 billion fewer animals that are being killed now. So some of this is the rise of veganism. Some of this is just people reducing their meat consumption, which of course is a good thing in and of itself. But I think the people that respond defensively to vegans probably deep down know that this is a more humane and compassionate path. And oftentimes those that react the most defensive to something are trying to protect themselves or their own sort of inner monologue as to why they're not embracing or living this lifestyle.
Right.
So I think that when we see people who want to chastise or make fun of vegans or a vegan diet, it's some sort of self-protecting model that they have so that they can avoid really looking at this issue seriously and addressing it themselves. That's been my experience.
Right, because, to me, a lot of people act as though being a vegan means you're trying to be better than everybody else, or it's a status symbol. It's the same crap I got when I first drove a hybrid car in 2005. I mean, people actually stopped me on the street and accosted me verbally. What do you think? You're making a difference? I mean, crazy stuff, And I would just look at them and say, I'm making a difference to me, And I couldn't understand why it bothered people so much that I was driving a hybrid. And yet now, it's, a little less than 10 years ago, my town is loaded with hybrid cars. You know what I mean? It's the only, it'd be wonderful if the same thing happened with people and their diets. But, I didn't become a vegan, to be better than anybody else. I did it for me, but mostly I did it for compassion for the animals. I don't want to be a part of that.
Absolutely. I think that a vegan diet is really the most selfless thing that you can do in terms of living your values and easing the environmental footprint that you leave, the environmental impact footprint that you leave, and reducing suffering. And I think that is really what it boils down to. Is it's about doing the most good and the least harm. Mm-hmm. And every day we make choices in our lives that can lead to cruelty and exploitation and the degradation of the environment, or that can lead to kindness and compassion, empathy, and helping others. And as you said, we have incredible power every time we sit down to eat. So being vegan is really about doing the best that we can to make this world a kinder place, a place where our environment can flourish. Mm. And the sum of many actions on this is reduction in the number of animals being raised under horrible conditions and killed for food. The sum total of this is, sparing water usage and land predation and all of these crucial issues that we absolutely must wake up to as a society and begin to address before it's too late.
Absolutely. Look at all the farmers that have had to slaughter their cattle this year and last year because they didn't have enough water, to keep them alive.
That's right. And in Los Angeles and California right now, there's a huge drought. And one of the largest culprits for water usage is livestock production in the state. I mean, it is really reaching a point where we will not have a choice but to address this issue. And I think that we must be forward-thinking enough. We must be conscious enough to stand up and take notice now before it's too late to start to address it. And it's never been easier. There are so many incredible, healthy, nutritious, vegan food options on the market that we sacrifice nothing but cruelty and environmental degradation by going vegan, and we gain everything. We get more in touch with ourselves, our bodies, our values, and it's an empowering way of living in line with the way that we want to treat others. It's a powerful way of living in line with creating the future that we want to see, and we can do that every time when we sit down to eat.
Right. Well, one of the things I really enjoyed, as I told you before the show, I interviewed Scott Shetler last week. And Scott suggested, and I think it's a good idea, instead of saying when you go out with your friends or whatever that you're, vegetarian or vegan, just say, I follow an ethical, compassionate diet. Because those two words seem to have become a negative connotation in this world. For whatever reason, it really pisses people off. And it's funny because I met a woman last week that I had a business meeting with, and she wanted to meet up for lunch, and she said to me, where would you like to go? But I want you to know I follow a plant-based diet. So I said to her, well, that's great because I do too. So it almost feels like we have to have secret language now so we don't get stoned for doing the right thing.
Well, call it an herbivore diet, call it plant-based, plant-strong, vegan, pure vegetarian, whatever you choose to call it, the action is what's important. And the action of removing our support from this violent industry and this inhumane system is what matters. So call it what you're comfortable with, call it what you think will resonate most and open the hearts and minds of others most. But what's important is that we all start to take one step in front of the next on this journey. And even people reducing their consumption of meat and animal has a big impact. And oftentimes we find that when people are able to embrace Meatless Mondays, they then are much easier to embrace Meatless Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays. And before you know it, they're enjoying a diet that is just filled with wonderful plant-based foods, and they're really crowding out their old favorites and replacing them with new favorites, foods that are better for their health, better for the environment, and obviously much better for animals.
Absolutely. I was reading an article on Yahoo News. I was pretty surprised that it was there. And they said that the big new food last year was quinoa, as if everybody in the world discovered it. And I have to tell you, I discovered it myself last year. So I said, wow, I guess I'm trendy. But it wasn't bacon. It wasn't some new meat product. It was quinoa. And it's funny because they had a little celebration at the gym I go to, and they had I couldn't believe it was all meat spread at the gym with cake and everything. But one of the dishes was vegan, and I had never seen it before, and it was quinoa. And I said, what is this? Is there any meat in it? And they said no, and I tasted it, and I've been making it ever since. I mean, it's wonderful.
Quinoa is an incredible food. It's an ancient grain, and it's so high in protein, and it's so easy to cook and easy to work with. And that's just one example of the absolute plethora of plant-based foods that are out there. A lot of people think that by going vegan that they are going to be giving up and missing all of their favorite foods. But what I have found is that most people, when they make this change or transition in their diet, they actually find that their whole world of food options opens up incredibly. They start to explore cuisine from India and Ethiopian cuisine and Thai cuisine and all of these other incredible foods, many of which are plant-based, from other areas of the world. We find that most Americans, unfortunately, eat a diet that consists of just a handful of foods, and it's a rather monotonous diet. But once you start to really open up your mind to all of these other foods that are out there, you start to experience so many incredible new flavors and textures and experiences with food that you didn't even know existed. So for me personally, and many others that I know who have gone vegan, it has actually dramatically improved their diet from a health standpoint, but also from a variety standpoint.
Absolutely. I have a very close friend who is trying very hard to get off the meat-based diet. But she has a problem because when you're used to cooking that way, you have no idea how to cook anything that doesn't include meat. So what I usually do is I stealthily invite her over for coffee in the afternoon, right about the time I'm going to start cooking. And she sits there with her coffee and watches me prepare food. And she takes notes. She's like, wow, that's so good. Or even if she missed my cooking lesson of the day, I'll always give her a taste of what I made the night before and tell her how I cooked it. But I said, listen, I had to learn how to cook all over again too. And the more into it you get, the more you learn. So sometimes just sharing with your friends, get them to taste what you've cooked. Show them how to cook it. Because it really is not difficult. I mean, you should be able to whip up a really tasty dinner in less than 10 minutes. Unless I'm having company, then I'll make something super fancy that takes me 20 minutes. But I really do try to teach as many people as I can, and I'm happy to do it because I remember where I was when I started 14 years ago. It was like I fell into a whole new planet and I had to figure out, I didn't want to keep eating the same thing every night. So I had to figure out, okay, what are these other things that I've never eaten in my life and how do I cook them?
Absolutely. And for listeners who might not have a vegan friend who can have them over to do cooking classes, I recommend that they check out our website, chooseveg.com. We have tons of recipes. There are videos. We have a page on cooking without eggs. We have tips on traveling and sticking with a vegan diet. We even have what we call build-a-meals, which are easy, quick to do. I wouldn't even call them recipes because it takes really no cooking skills, but things on how to make vegan burritos and vegan veggie burgers, vegan pastas. Really easy, fun, and familiar foods that people can start to experiment with and fit to their liking immediately. So I hope that everyone will check out chooseveg.com, and I think that they'll find it to be a really invaluable resource.
Absolutely, and I know that goveg.com will send people a starter kit. Are you also doing that?
That's right. Yeah, if people go to chooseveg.com now, they can order a free veg starter kit. It's a 32-page magazine that is just packed with information and tips and recipes, and we will get that sent right out to you. So I do encourage everyone to go to chooseveg.com now and order one of those free guides.
So okay. So that's great.
To provide information.
Yeah. Good to know because, I've been telling people whenever they question me, which is often on Facebook, go to goveg.com, get a free starter kit. Now I can tell them go to chooseveg.com and get a whole 32-page one. So that's a great idea. Nathan, we're going to take a short break. When we get back, I want to talk about some of the recent campaigns Mercy for Animal has done. I mean, you're making the news left and right, which makes me so proud every time I see Mercy for Animals in a news story. So stay with us. Nathan and I will be right back.
Wow. One solid hour of commercial-free information thanks to you. The person who wants truth has the integrity and understanding to support it with your donation and subscription. Meria believes people can handle the truth and delivers it tirelessly with those with ears to listen. 14 years on the net. Won't you take a moment right now to commit to a subscription of your choice at www.meria.net. That's MERIA.net. Over 1,100 hours of pure education all in one place, 24/7 and all downloadable. Knowledge is power. Sharing that knowledge is wisdom. Together we can change the world and create real hope. Now let's get back to the Meria Heller Show.
Welcome back. I'm speaking with my excellent guest, Nathan Runkle of mercyforanimals.org. And as we said before the break, if you want a free starter kit, 32 pages long, ideas on, menus and what to do, and even if you just did it one day a week to start out, nobody's going to scold you. Get over to chooseveg.com. Nathan, I've been following Mercy for Animals. A lot of your exposés are hitting the, mass media. And of course, whenever I see it, I always have this proud mother-like smile on my face since I've been interviewing you, I think, since you're 16 years old. It's amazing to me how much you have accomplished in 15 years. And I just want to thank you on behalf of, myself and my audience, and of course, all the animals that are depending on people like you. You have done a fantastic job. I checked out some of your latest videos last night, and I posted some of them once again on Facebook. And I'm waiting for all the nasty comments to come in, which, some of my listeners say, Meria, my God, do you get these many hateful comments all the time? And I say, yes, I do, and I really don't care. So it doesn't really bother me. Love me or hate me, it doesn't really matter. I was watching the one on sliceofcruelty.com, and I thought about DiGiorno's commercial, which is, make it DiGiorno or make it yourself. Well, after I saw that video and posted it on Facebook, I said I'll rather make it myself. I haven't gotten too many death threats because of posting that one yet. I don't know if people can even handle watching it. It was hard for me. I never seem to get, I don't even know what the word is, a tough skin watching these kind of videos. They always make me cry, and they always make me really pissed off. But this one in particular, when you see the workers, it's not the first film I've seen of cows being tortured. But I have to say, it is the first one where they're calling them every disgusting curse word that you could ever use towards a woman. And I was like, oh my God. I said, what in the hell is this? The world surely doesn't have any shortage of sociopaths. So people might be thinking, well, a frozen pizza, what does that have to do with animal cruelty?
Yeah, well, we did an undercover investigation at Weese's Brothers Farms in Wisconsin. It's a massive dairy factory farm, and they happen to supply milk that's used as cheese in DiGiorno pizza. And our investigator documented just a horrific culture of cruelty at this dairy farm. Cows being beaten, dragged with chains, lifted up off the ground with forklifts, animals with broken bones and open infections, animals slipping and falling, being unable to get up on the manure-coated concrete. Just an absolute appalling condition, really a living nightmare for these cows. We took this information directly to law enforcement. They've initiated a criminal and animal cruelty investigation, and we are optimistic that animal cruelty charges will be filed shortly against the workers at this factory farm who showed just an absolute lack of care or regard for these sensitive and intelligent animals. We targeted DiGiorno with this investigation in hopes that, number one, consumers would see that the hidden cost of cheap dairy products, in this case cheese on DiGiorno pizza, is shocking animal abuse. This is the fourth undercover investigation we've done at a major dairy supplier nationally, and every time it uncovers criminal animal abuse. Every case so far has led to workers being criminally prosecuted for animal cruelty, which shows just how widespread and rampant this abuse is and how it really is inherent in a system that views and treats these animals as milk-producing machines. Mm-hmm. We are hoping that DiGiorno and its parent company Nestle, which is the largest dairy company in the U.S., mm-hmm. will take action on this issue, that they will choose to implement industry-leading animal welfare policies, that they will start unannounced inspections and audits of their dairy farms, that they will phase out the cruel practice of tail docking, which is cutting through the sensitive skin, nerves, and bones of cows without any painkillers, that they will implement a zero-tolerance policy for workers beating animals, that they will end dragging live animals. Simple, common-sense changes that must be made, and what we feel DiGiorno and Nestle have certainly the power, and we feel the ethical responsibility mm-hmm. to implement. And tens of thousands of people have signed our petition at sliceofcruelty.com. hundreds of people have contacted the company through social media expressing their outrage, and we hope that this will all lead to positive, meaningful change, because these animals are just completely at our mercy, and what happens to them on dairy farms across the country is just shameful and something that no civilized society should be tolerating.
Absolutely. And people, when they think of Nestle, they think of, Nestle chocolate. They think that's it. What they don't understand is Nestle happens to be the #1 food producer in the world. Way ahead of all the other food corporations is Nestle. So if we can get them to change their ways, that's a huge coup. But, watching that film, I don't want to embarrass you, but I got to tell you, Nathan, when I see that one man beating the crap out of that cow, and there's a woman standing nearby, he's calling that cow a whore and terrible, the C word, which I hate, a piece of shit while he's beating it. And I'm thinking to myself, if he's calling a cow a whore and all these nasty names, I wonder how this guy treats his wife, if he has one. Do you know what I mean? And I think about, I don't remember which environmentalist it was that said that the way we treat animals eventually will treat humans.
I think that that's very true. I think how we treat the weak and the vulnerable speak volumes about who we are and our character. And what we find time and time again when we do undercover investigations of factory farms and slaughterhouses is we find rampant animal abuse, but we also find workers who are themselves suffering from alcoholism and drug abuse and addiction, and things that are classic signs of self-medication. People that are suffering from, in this case, what's called perpetration-induced post-traumatic stress disorder. People that are essentially being put in positions where they, as part of their daily job, engage in mental acts of violence, oftentimes against their own core values when they take these positions. But over time, they become desensitized to the violence that they're involved in. And again, going back to what we talked about earlier, I think that this should raise a lot of red flags and questions for us as a society. If we have factory farms and slaughterhouses that are built off of the mistreatment of animals in such horrible ways that it leads to essentially post-traumatic stress disorder for those that are working in these facilities, that lead to alcoholism and substance abuse as a way of self-medicating to just carry out these jobs, I think it has to, again, lead our society to really pause and question these systems, these institutions, and what role they have and what role they should have, if any, in our society.
Right. I mean, when I watch some of your videos, it's not a big jump for me to think back on the pictures that were released of our treatment of prisoners at Abu Ghraib, where our soldiers treated them the same way that people that work in slaughterhouses treat these animals, whipping them, beating them, stripping them down, humiliating them, pissing on them. You look at that and you say, maybe what goes in is what comes out. You are what you eat. And you look at all these reports of what goes on inside. I got a story this morning, I want to say it's Alabama, where they said that every female prisoner in Alabama is raped repeatedly by the people that work there. And, when you look inside our prison systems, it really doesn't look much different than agri-farming.
That's absolutely right, and I think that, again, this is an issue that our society has to address. We simply cannot afford to turn a blind eye. I do think that the animal protection movement is a social justice issue. I think it's one that is urgent and one of the most pressing of our time when you look at the number of individuals that are suffering and just the horrible conditions. And I think that future generations will look back in absolute disgust with how we mistreated animals on factory farms and in slaughterhouses. And I think that future generations will ask what we did while this was happening to end it. And we have an opportunity now to take the side of the weak against the strong, in this case, that of the animals against these massive corporations, and demand better, to demand change.
Absolutely. It's almost as though, the way we today would look back on cannibalism. I'm sure a few generations from now, they'll look at us the same way and say, what the hell was wrong with them? I know you've had a very successful, at least from what I'm reading and seeing, a very successful campaign against Walmart for their treatment of pigs. Do you want to talk a little about where that's at?
Absolutely. The last year and a half, we have been really aggressively campaigning to do away with gestation crates in the United States. And gestation crates are 2 feet wide metal stalls that confine pregnant pigs for essentially their entire lives. And these crates, the pigs can't turn around, they can't lay down comfortably, they can't walk, they can't socialize, they can't play, they can't do anything that comes natural to them. And this is just unacceptable abuse for really intelligent animals. Pigs are more intelligent than dogs. They're more intelligent than 3-year-old human children. These are really incredible creatures, and we absolutely reduce them to insanity on these factory farms. So since in the last year and a half, over 60 of the largest food companies, including McDonald's, Burger King, Safeway, Kroger, have all responded to public pressure, and they have implemented policies saying that they are going to phase out these horrible gestation crates. Now, Walmart, who of course is the largest retailer and now the largest grocer in the United States, largest pork buyer in the United States as well, has yet to take action on this issue. So we've been campaigning aggressively to get Walmart to follow the lead of its competitors and say that gestation crates are unacceptable and they will not support them. We have done over 200 demonstrations in over 150 cities nationwide as part of our Walmart cruelty campaign. We've done 4 undercover investigations inside of Walmart pork suppliers, and we have enlisted the support of celebrities to bring attention to this issue. Over 500,000 people have signed our petition to Walmart, and we are cautiously optimistic that Walmart is internally moving in the right direction on this issue. Our campaign is ongoing, but from what we're hearing, the rumblings that we're hearing, a policy is hopefully not too far away. And we really view this as the final nail in the coffin of this outdated and just egregiously cruel factory farming practice. Once Walmart comes out and says that gestation crates have no future, gestation crates will have no future, and this unspeakable form of institutionalized animal abuse will be a thing of the past.
Great. And people can go sign that petition at walmartcruelty.com. I'm putting live links to all these sites in here to make it very easy for you, the listener, to just click through and sign petitions. It doesn't take long. Maybe your auto feed is set and it could just fill it out blank, just like that. One of the other films that kind of surprised me, Nathan, when I was surfing your site last night, mercyforanimals.org, was Amazon.cruelty.com. And I said, Amazon doesn't sell food. And then I was like, wow, where have I been hiding? Because I had no idea that people could even buy food at Amazon, let alone that there's an Amazon.cruelty.com out there. And of course, I watched the film, which it's probably like the 1,000th time I've seen it, and it always reminds me of how they force-fed women in the United States when women were trying to get the vote, when they ended up in jail and they were sticking tubes down their throat and force-feeding them. And of course, we're talking here about ducks and foie gras.
That's right. We have a campaign, AmazonCruelty.com, which is aimed at getting Amazon, which is the world's largest online retailer, to end the sale of foie gras. And foie gras, which is French for fatty liver, is produced by shoving often metal tubes down the throats of ducks and geese up to 3 times a day, force-feeding them to the point where their livers become diseased and swell up to 10 times their natural size. This is a practice that's so inherently cruel that it's been banned in California and the entire European Union. Yet Amazon continues to sell hundreds of foie gras products on its website, making them one of the largest marketplaces for this delicacy of despair. So we did an investigation at the largest foie gras factory farm in the United States, which is Hudson Valley Foie Gras in upstate New York, that documented this just unspeakably cruel practice, as well as other inhumane conditions there. And Hudson Valley is a primary foie gras supplier to Amazon. And we went to Amazon and we tried to engage with them. We asked them to stop selling foie gras, but they turned a blind eye and a deaf ear to the issue, refusing to meet with us, refusing to acknowledge the issue. And that has continued to be their position to this day, as they've been ducking the issue entirely and refusing to address it. We hope that Amazon will take note of this issue, as they have in Europe. Just last year, they announced that they would no longer be selling foie gras on the Amazon site in Europe. And Amazon has a past of taking action on issues of animal welfare. They voluntarily stopped the sale of shark fin and whale meat. They've stopped selling dog fighting videos. They stopped selling toys that even resemble abused dogs for a Halloween prop. So they've taken action on similar types of issues in the past. But when it comes to foie gras, they have yet to address the issue. So we hope that listeners will go to AmazonCruelty.com, that they'll watch the video, that they'll sign the petition, that they'll contact Amazon and ask them to take action on this. This is something that they can easily do that will not affect their bottom line. This is not a product that the company is built off of, but by taking action, they can really put a major dent in this cruel and outdated industry, which is the foie gras industry.
Absolutely. And, if everybody's going in there and signing these petitions, one of the wonderful things you do, Nathan, which makes my job so much easier, is he always has a share button. So all you have to do once you sign it, just click the share button. It'll automatically post to any one of your social medias that you use. And always put a little tagline, I signed this, please go in and sign. It'll only take a minute. Because that's what I do. The other thing I see you have, it's kind of interesting because I really don't care for McDonald's at all or fast food at all. But I also see that you have a petition on your site. It's petitioning McDonald's to add veggie burgers to their menu. And I want to tell you a funny story about that, Nathan, because I think you'll get a kick out of it. When I first became vegan, 14 years ago, no fast food place was selling veggie burgers except Burger King. Now, the neighborhood that I lived in, which is true probably for most, McDonald's and Burger King are usually across the street from each other. So I deliberately, and I had my son in the car with me, I said, let's go have some fun. And we pull up to the drive-in window at McDonald's. And I said, I want a veggie burger, fully knowing they didn't have veggie burgers. And I waited for the kid to say, oh, we don't have veggie burgers. And I just said, oh, that's right, Burger King does. And I whipped out of the driveway. And my son was laughing. He thought it was pretty cool. So that might be a little effective action your people might want to try, because it's pretty fun. Just pull up where you know they don't have them and order them. You know what I mean?
That's a great story, and it's absolutely true. These companies respond to consumer demand, and if consumers are demanding more vegan products, of course they're going to respond to that. And the petition that you're referring to is a new petition that was set up actually by Kathy Freston, who is a New York Times bestseller. She's the author of Quantum Wellness, The Veganist, and The Lean, all about a healthy plant-based diet. And yeah, Kathy is asking, and we are supporting her in her campaign, that McDonald's simply offer a veggie burger. Certainly in the 21st century, with the number of vegetarians and vegans and flexitarians and those that are celebrating Meatless Monday on the rise, this is not only a good move that McDonald's could make for business, but certainly one that their customers could celebrate as well. So we do hope that everyone will sign that petition, and they can find it at mercyforanimals.org, and that they will join this campaign to get McDonald's to offer a plant-based veggie burger, something that I think is a no-brainer in this state.
Right. And absolutely, if you just feel a little bit of the devil in you, do what I did. Just pull up to the window and ask for what you know they don't have. And you know what? I just figured if enough people do that, they're going to say, hey, you know what? We're getting a lot of people asking for veggie burgers, and we don't have any. I mean, I've actually gone into my restaurants locally and told them, go to the store, buy a box of frozen veggie burgers, and have them here when I ask for it. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you have to shame them into it because, not everybody wants to eat meat. And I'm very verbal about it, but I try to be fun about it. Although, me and my son really felt like we were bandits fleeing McDonald's after I said, oh, that's right, Burger King has them. So I can't help myself. It's just who I am. I don't think I'll ever grow up. Nathan, so what new stuff are you guys planning? What do you got in the pipeline for this year?
Well, we always have investigations going on, and I would love to be on the show once those investigations have broke. We are doing a lot of work in Canada now as well. There is a Mercy for Animals Canada organization. We've done a number of really groundbreaking, nationally recognized investigations into pig farms and egg farms in Canada, and we'll continue that undercover work. And we're looking to expand the reach of our pro-vegan campaigns and farm animal advocacy to other areas of the world, to India and China and Mexico, places where the population is rising, and with it we see the rise of KFC and McDonald's and Burger King and meat consumption, and with that comes more factory farms, and with that comes more animals that are being treated in horrible ways. So we are looking to expand our reach to be proactive and hopefully addressing these issues in other countries.
Well, Nathan, I'm right. Great. I'm sure you know by now, all you need to do is put my number on speed dial. When you have a breaking story or new campaign, I will always find time to get you on the show. That's a promise.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for everything you do and for still doing what you do. And for being my friend. I mean, I always introduce you as my favorite hero on the planet, and you still are.
Well, it's a wonderful honor, and it's always a joy to speak with you. So thanks so much, Meria.
You're welcome. Take good care, Nathan. Nathan Runkle, a hero since he's 16 years old. Okay, he became vegan, I think, at 12. And the stories that he's gone through to do what he does have been unbelievable. Anyway, there you have it. That's today. Tomorrow, Joe Anthony joins me for Stars Are Us. I do have a solidified commitment from Michael Recchia, so start sending in your questions because he will be fending questions from the audience on his show, which will kick off in March, and we're calling it The Big Picture. Thanks for listening. Hope you got something good out of this for yourselves, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you for listening and supporting The Meria Show. Tell others what you learned today. Knowledge becomes wisdom only when it's shared. Encourage others to subscribe today. www.meria.net. Often imitated, never duplicated. A world of information all in one place. www.meria.net. Always ahead of the curve. Always on your side. Get active or get radioactive. Subscribe today.